Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer, and I hear you and I've got you. Think of me as the one-stop shop for all your midlife needs. I'm a psychologist, registered dietitian, nutritionist, board-certified health and wellness coach, and mindful self-compassion teacher. I'm also an author and podcast host with over 30 years of experience empowering midlife women. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife. I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer, and I am so glad that you are here today because we have a very special show. Today is World Menopause Day. It's really a day where we give a little bit more attention to menopause. And, it's not your mother's menopause anymore. There's a lot more information, a lot more interest. And because you are calling for more information, you're talking to your physicians, you're talking to each other, there's all of this buzz on social media, things are really starting to change. And hopefully the research will catch up and we will have more and better tools for all of us. But we have a huge toolbox to share with you today because I have two incredible guests. I am going to be talking today to Claire Gill. She is founder of the National Menopause Foundation, and Kate Codrington. She's author of Second Spring, and they're going to be sharing the latest information about menopause, as well as the results of the National Menopause Foundation and Bank of America Breakthrough the Stigma survey. You might not realize it, but in the US, an estimated 6,000 women daily and more than 2 million women yearly reach menopause, which is the point when you haven't had a menstrual cycle for a year. I know we also talk about I'm going through the menopause, but technically it's perimenopause. And that moment that you haven't had a menstrual cycle in a year is when you reach that moment you say, I'm done. And so today's show is really going to help clear up some of the confusion and provide solutions for your most pressing menopausal symptoms. And I have to say that World Menopause Day began in 2009. So it's been around for, 14 years. Boy, do I wish I had known about it when I was going through menopause, because I'm 60 and I hit menopause 4 years ago at 56, and we just weren't talking about it, and I know certainly my mother never talked about it. It was like, did it even exist? I think about sort of like quantum reality. If no one hears the tree fall in the woods, is it falling? But, for a long time, a lot of women weren't going through menopause because women just didn't live that long. Right. And then there was a period where, women were looked at as kind of crazy because they were going through this natural, physiological, psychological, emotional change. And now we're finally taking a look at it. We are talking about it because I know when I was going through it, certainly I had hot flashes, and even the language needs to change, right? We need to get new phrases for all of these things. But I certainly was having those heat changes, certainly having insomnia. Experienced depression. It was diagnosed as clinical depression. And looking back, I wonder if I had treated the menopause symptoms differently instead of with antidepressants, what the outcome would be. And I think one of my symptoms, which I actually just wrote about for a Crunchy Tales, if you haven't checked them out, it's a great magazine. It's crunchytales.com. I wrote about menopausal rage. And I know Kate writes about this, and she is actually quoted in the article. I would just shove all of this anger down. I would shove it down. I have a Libra moon, so I have really conflicted verse, and I would shove it down and shove it down and shove it down. And I remember one night it just exploded. My ex-husband, it was like 8:30. I was starving. So don't get hangry. That's a big tip. Don't go on cockamamie diets that get your blood sugar too low. I was super hungry. It was like 8:30. I was so hungry. I took this chicken out of the oven and I started nibbling on a piece of it. And my ex-husband yelled at me, and I took the chicken bone and I threw it at him, and I stormed out of the house and I got a divorce. But it was like this all of a sudden explosion. So I'm so glad that you are here today, and you're going to get information that you need to deal with all the things, the mood changes, the insomnia, the hot flashes. And also, I think one of the most important things, which we'll touch on today, is if you're not feeling your best, menopause is a huge wake-up call to make changes in your life. I often think about this midlife, and certainly going through menopause, as really being in the chrysalis, where you're moving from that caterpillar to butterfly, and it's very uncomfortable, literally physiologically. And it's really important, if you've been ignoring your body, ignoring its signals, not eating right, not getting sleep, not moving your body, this is the time to really pay attention, because as we go through these hormonal fluctuations, the drop in estrogen, the relative changes in the balance of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, things like bone health starts to become an issue, heart health starts to become an issue, brain health becomes an issue, muscle health becomes an issue. You actually need more protein after 50. So really important time to pay attention. Every time is important, but I think menopause is a really, as you're going through menopause, it's an important wake up time to start to pay attention to your body. So let's get into it. Let me formally introduce my two beautiful guests. We have Claire Gill, and she launched the National Menopause Foundation in September of 2019. Its mission is to be a trusted and relatable resource to raise awareness and understanding of menopause through education, activism, and community building. Previously, Ms. Gill spent 20 plus years in public relations and marketing for national nonprofits and Forbes for Fortune 500 clients. She is a respected leader in women's health, and she serves on a variety of coalitions and working groups promoting the needs of women at midlife. And then we have the beautiful Kate Codrington. She is author of this incredible book. I highly recommend it. It's like a Bible for so many women. It's called Second Spring, The Self-Care Guide to Menopause. She is an author, a speaker, a facilitator, an artist, and a podcaster. And she is part of the Menopause Canon, according to the New York Times. This book is. She mentors people in perimenopause and beyond, and she is a nature-based yoga nidra meditation guide. She hosts Life, an Inside Job podcast, and she's been a therapist for more than 3 decades and creates multi-level art textile projects. So welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Claire and Kate. It is so awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
So my first question is, in your perspective, how has the way we view menopause and the way we treat it, how has it changed in the last decade or so?
Do you want to go first, Kate?
Yeah, sure. It's very exciting in the UK at the moment. I'm here near London, and there is a television presenter called Davina McCall, and she made a television program. When was that? I don't know, 2 years ago now, I think the first one was. And it catapulted, I think, exactly as you say, Ellen, before that point, perimenopause didn't really exist at all on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And now it's a thing. And now people are educated, people are knowing to expect changes in the menstrual cycle, people are knowing that it's time to take care of themselves, time to bring more kindness into their lives. And it's the effect has been absolutely electric. And what's happening now is that there's a new impetus from UCL, that's the University College in London, to create a national menopause education and support scheme. So devising education that will be rolled out, hopefully at low cost or free, right across the country. So that, and also for people who are in their 30s as well. So before people arrive in perimenopause, they can be educated as to what to expect. So we've gone from sort of 0 to 60 in like 2 years. It's astonishing.
It's amazing. I wish we had that kind of progression in the US, but we definitely look to the UK for that example of, the ways that we can make a big change and impact. But I think, to answer your question, Ellen, even in the United States, when I founded the National Menopause Foundation in 2019, the end of 2019, it's just kind of crazy that there wasn't already a national organization dedicated to patient advocacy for women at midlife at that point. But when we announced around, again, we did some activities for the World Menopause Day that year, and there were only a few other, things happening on that day from some women's health groups that weren't specifically focused on menopause, even just general women's health. and then they help celebrate menopause. And now I can't even keep up on social media and liking and tagging and all of the things that are happening today. And so that's really a credit to all of the organizations and people and companies that have been devoting more time to this important topic. And just like you, who are, spending time helping women at this stage of life. So I think that's all a very good sign, but we have a lot of work to do to actually improve women's health at midlife when we're talking about all of those things that you referenced about the things that become watch out points for women as we hit this stage of life. And unlike our friends in the UK, women here don't yet know. It's not commonly aware of what to expect when we hit midlife. So we're doing a little bit of catch up, but I'm very optimistic about what's to come and how quickly we can bring about positive change.
Yeah, a lot needs to be done in terms of physician education. When I read literature, I'm amazed that even OBGYNs don't always have education about perimenopause. And certainly we need a lot more research to understand this phase of life and what works and what doesn't work. But it's kind of like women are not studied, particularly because we have periods and we can get pregnant, so they don't study us as much as they do men. Are you seeing that starting to change in terms of physician education and also more studying of menopause, perimenopause, so we understand it better?
Yeah, so really two important things here. And again, I think, Kate can talk about the advances they've made on those areas in the UK. One is the North American Menopause Society, which has just rebranded itself as the Menopause Society, does do education. I was just at their annual conference in Philadelphia in September, and it was September, and they do an incredible program certifying people, clinicians, to be menopause specialists. And so you can go to menopause.org, and they have a listing there that, if you're looking for someone in your area who has a specialty in menopause, do check that out. And secondly, we've been partnering with the fabulous nonprofit called Let's Talk Menopause. They're based in New York, and we're working with them on legislation that will be introduced in the United States. That is the Menopause Research and Equity Act of 2023, which does direct that specific dollars from the U.S. congressional budget for research at NIH be positioned directly to study menopause. So those are really exciting, developments.
And what are you seeing, Kate, in the UK in terms of physician education around menopause and also research?
Slowly. And I think there's in the past, women cyclical. Who knows where they're going to be? How would you do research on a body that is in constant flux? And then if you take that constantly fluctuating, beautiful, or in my vision, beautifully cyclical and adaptive body, and then bring it into perimenopause when there's even more unknowing, there's even more unpredictability, and God forbid, an older woman. I mean, who wants to put money in that? There's more money in the research for fertility, even less now. But slowly, things are moving. Because of the work that you two are doing, because we're talking about it all the time, because every time we show up on social media or at conferences or at summits, we nudge the needle a little bit, and people in perimenopause feel a little bit more empowered to say, hey, actually, to their physicians, it is not antidepressants I need here. What are my options? So I always think if one person feels more positive about their transition from what I'm doing, then we're winning.
That's right.
So Kate, can you talk a little bit about what is actually going on hormonally and some of the, you said options, what people can do as they go through what you call these psychological phases of menopause?
Well, perimenopause really is a time of increasing sensitivity. If you think about from your menarche through your 30s, you're becoming more worldly. You're testing out yourself in the world, finding out who you are, finding out, it's a process of individuation and finding out how your spirit can impact the world, how you can express yourself in the world, how you're met in the world. And then coming into perimenopause, it's a time of increasing sensitivity and contraction and reflection. You're coming in towards yourself through perimenopause and menopause. And this process of increasing sensitization, and I mean that hormonally and in terms of psychological sensitivity, is a natural and useful process. Because typically we've been socialized to give away too much of ourselves, to work all the time, to put others before ourselves, to prioritize our productivity, prioritize other people's needs and other people's agendas before our own. And I would say that we need to look at we're being invited rather to look at our health in perimenopause, not just to be well through our transition, but to set ourselves up for the second half of our life. That's the real agenda here. So when somebody says to me, because rest, reflection, and nourishment are the three pillars, this is what we need to be doing in our own way, from our own culture, from what pleases us, what is accessible to us. And when people say, well, I don't have time, I don't have access to this, it's really a question of what kind of elder do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to have post-menopause? Because if you're not able to take in the nourishment and the rest now, then you will continue to burn out.
I love that. The rest, reflection, and nourishment. It's so important because I find when I rest, and I do this a lot now, I did a lot during my cancer treatment, but I'll do a 15-minute lie down. I'll do a yoga nidra, or I love Plum Village. I'll do a, guided meditation. I have so much more energy. And I have been working a lot with my clients on this idea of increasing our capacity and not having our cup, not giving from our cup, filling our cup, but then a 5-minute rest during the day, going outside, taking some breath of fresh air, shutting our eyes, doing some breath work, 5 minutes that, are spending some time doing some journaling. I know you've got a journal coming out, which we'll definitely want to talk about, and journaling prompts, reflection of who am I, where am I going, what's working, what's not working. And then this nourishment piece, which is about that lifestyle, what you need in terms of sleep and food and relationships. We'll have so much more capacity for ourselves and everyone. So it is, if you're listening, yes, we need to talk about what the different medical options are, but it also giving yourself permission to slow down, to increase your capacity by having this rest, reflection, and nourishment. So I absolutely love that. Anything to add, Claire? Thoughts about what women can be doing? And then we'll talk about specifically about what the National Menopause Foundation is providing in terms of resources.
Yeah, well, I think everything that we just discussed is exactly right. Is that opportunity for us to kind of take this moment to reflect, and then for many of us, it's that springboard, as you said, Kate, to that next phase of life, and where it used to be, it's sort of that winding down, and as you had mentioned earlier at the beginning, Ellen, that women didn't live long enough, and now we're spending a third of our lives or more in postmenopause. And so that's kind of exciting. And that's very different, though. So it's new. Women didn't really know what to be expected of them or what to expect from themselves as they started this next phase of life. And I think that's changed dramatically over the last few decades. And so we're seeing much more being done, many more women. I mean, now you have the Forbes list of 50 over 50, right? These inspiring women over 50, where we used to just focus on the inspiring young people, the 40 under 40. Do you remember those lists? That again rewarded what was happening in that building stage of our careers, as you mentioned, Kate. And now it's, oh wait, women are still, and men are still very productive over the age of 50. So I think that's really exciting. But as you said, there's times that needs to be spent looking at what do we want to do health-wise for us, for that older person we want to be. I think we all envision living healthy, active aging. That's, a hot topic these days. And so what can we do now, right at this stage of life? And it's never too early and it's never too late. So no whatever what stage you were in physically, mentally, even again in your social structure, there are things that you can do that make this next part of the journey incredibly rewarding, healthy, active, whatever it is that you want to fulfill. So I think being that kind of inspiration for people is really important too.
Yeah, that is so important, that you can be productive, but also I just find that I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
I just never expected that this next, I like to think of it as a second adulthood, how much fun it is. I have got a wonderful man in my life, and we've got this great extended family, and we have so much fun, and haven't done the pickleball thing, but and then I've been watching this, and I've gotten asked to speak a lot about the Golden Bachelor, the 72-year-old man who's got these women, and they're all having fun and having love in their life. And I think, again, this is such a great time to give yourself permission to reset, rest, reflect, give yourself nourishment so that you can move forward. So let's talk a little bit about some of the lifestyle changes, lifestyle things that people can do. I mean, I'm always talking about nutrition, certainly being a dietitian, and it's so important to eat a whole food plant-based diet. So you want to be getting all of those plant chemicals, all of that fiber, things like phytoestrogens found in things like soy can really help you with managing your hormones, as well as managing your weight. Weight gain is a big hot topic during menopause. As you know, as estrogen goes down, we tend to gain weight around the middle, but it's also, stress is a big factor with that too. I always tell people it's not inevitable. I think we should plan for it and change our diet accordingly. We need a little bit less calorically. So that's a little hard because we need more nutritionally. We need more protein. We need certainly more vitamin D, more calcium, but we need less calories. So we need to get more active, keep that muscle mass up. It's so important to eat more protein. We need almost 50% more protein after 50. So I'm always a big fan of making sure you're getting 20 grams of protein in your meals and snacks, that you're doing the strength training for both your muscles and your bones. Moving your body throughout the day, using a standing desk. Sleep is so important. And that's why, if you're struggling with sleep, you might want to take a look if hormone replacement is going to help, because that lowering of the progesterone can really impact that. So sleep is so important for our metabolic health, for our mental health, and certainly learning how to manage our stress, how to rest, how to do less. And I'm wondering, Kate, can you add, certainly with your background, with yoga nidra and tools you give people in your book, what are some of the other lifestyle changes that you recommend for folks?
Well, this is staying away from people. I think that's a really good plan. Anybody listening to this who's in perimenopause, they'll be thinking, I just want to burn the house down and run for the hills. I just want to live in a cabin in a mountain or by the sea and leave me the fuck alone. They just don't want to. They just don't want to be. And what I'd really like to suggest is this is a legitimate and a real desire. And while don't burn the house, probably not a good idea. But allowing yourself more time away from people in whatever you can whatever you can manage. So little pockets of time alone through your day is just so healing. And even that means sitting in the lavatory and locking the door for a bit longer. If that's what works for you, if that's all you can manage in your working day, that's really good. And to legitimize that as my space.
Yeah, that's powerful. I teach my clients how to take a self-compassion break. So when you notice that you're suffering, and suffering can just be, as you said, I'm just feeling like I'm going to explode and I want to burn the house down, or I'm feeling sad, whatever that is, going to the loo or going outside for a minute and just saying to yourself, you know what, this is a moment of suffering. I'm stressed right now. Suffering is part of life. Women going through menopause and in general, we have stressful moments. what do I need right now? And then giving yourself what you need. But that's really great advice. I'm so glad that you brought that up. How about you, Claire? Any words of wisdom, or perhaps you want to share some of the things that the National Menopause Foundation can do for women who are listening in terms of the wealth of resources and information on the website?
Yeah, I love the idea. I was just thinking about those moments we all have where like, would everyone just get away from me? Yes, that is certainly it. And the positive side of that though is also enjoying our own company more. And I think that's one of those things that it's too bad it takes us to this age to really become comfortable with that, and spending a little bit more time on our own and what that means. But I do hear that from a lot from women, that's kind of been a positive, where they really do enjoy their own company very much. So something to look forward to for those who are journeying to menopause. So the resources we have available on our website are free and downloadable and available to everyone. I think one of the biggest things, as we talked about a little bit earlier, about that women in the US maybe do not know as much about menopause still as other countries, women in other countries do. We have a fabulous checklist that allows women to sort of look at beyond what we think of as the common or the most known symptoms of menopause, which are the hot flashes, night sweats, etc. Those are called vasomotor symptoms. Great term, like you said, Ellen. We got to really rebrand some of these things, but those are the most common symptoms that women experience. And so I think those are the ones that we might be aware of. But many women don't understand that if you're not experiencing a hot flash or a night sweat, you might be experiencing one of the other. We have 30 plus symptoms of menopause. And so there might be others on that list that you are experiencing. And the checklist allows you to sort of look at your daily life and figure out, okay, what of these things am I experiencing? How often? What are the frequency? And how deeply, right? How much is it impacting your life? And then being able to use that checklist to have a conversation with your friends, hopefully with your healthcare provider, who might be responsive to saying, oh yes, one, this is completely normal. And two, here are some of the things that can be done, either nutritionally or exercise, or as you mentioned, hormone replacement therapy, and many other things. As you mentioned, antidepressants is one of the things when women are going through menopause and do feel anxiety and depression in a way that they either more deeply, if they've had it in their life, or some women start feeling it at menopause and they've never had that before, and that's really confusing. So there is that, but there are also some let me say off-label benefits of those for women who are experiencing those symptoms. The antidepressants actually help with hot flashes too. They minimize hot flashes. So you're using it to be able to address your mental health needs, but it turns out it also helps minimize your hot flashes as well. So it has a dual effect. But there's so many things that go into what those treatments are and the side effects, et cetera. So you really need to have those conversations with your healthcare providers. And then there are some things we can do environmentally besides running for the hills and telling everyone to get away from you, or definitely agree, don't burn down the house. And don't necessarily get a divorce. Ellen, as we talked about, you mentioned your experience, but I actually just did a podcast with Empowering Divorce. We were talking about that, how many women that are on the events and PowerPoints and things and webinars that I'm involved with say, oh my God, I just wanted him gone. I was ready to leave. To be thinking through our relationship and what we need and what we want, and that if the problems in your relationship have been ongoing, and just come to a head while you're on menopause and in that space, then that's really something that you should consider. If, however, everything's been golden and you're wonderful, and all of a sudden you can't stand the sight of your partner, maybe take a deep breath and think, this might be hormonal, and I need to sort of think through, how do I address whatever I need in a relationship based on that time of life. But otherwise, there are things we can do, like I said, in our homes, about keeping your bedroom cooler, wearing clothing that you're able to take on and take off, layers of clothing and things like that will help address those uncomfortable moments. And then really having those kind of conversations with your partner and with your friends as much as you're comfortable doing that, because you'll find you'll get a lot more support when people actually understand what it is you're experiencing. So your partner knows, oh, you're not just going crazy. This has never happened before. Now she's yelling at me, and all that kind of stuff. And our children, my daughter's just 12. And fortunately, we've had those conversations, but, we would joke when she would see me perspire and she'd say, oh, mommy, the menopause, just like they do in the UK, the menopause. But how wonderful, though, that she's able to share that and that I'm able to share it. You're right. That response that I had to whatever you just did wasn't really my best, and then taking it on from there. So all of those tips and resources are available on our website. We do also have a podcast and a newsletter, so people can sign up for that. And I think knowing you're not alone or what you're experiencing is normal, even if it's not what everybody else you read about is experiencing, it's very different for everybody. And so just getting comfortable with what those symptoms are and recognizing them, then you're able to address them.
Yeah, great points. And I think just tracking is so important. I wrote about this in my article on rage, is to track, if you're going through mood swings, track it. What triggered that mood swings? Again, was it because you didn't sleep well? Because someone said something to you and really triggered you, or you're hangry? What is it? So that you can take a look and say, what are some things that I could be doing differently? As Kate was saying, when we take time for ourselves, we feel validated. We can validate ourselves so that we don't feel like exploding. So fantastic tips. And it's the National Menopause Foundation.org, correct? And
yeah, just without the, just National Menopause
Foundation.org.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit. Actually, I said, Kate, do you want to add any other tips before we jump into the National Menopause Foundation and Bank of America's study on menopause in the workplace? Because I think in the workplace is definitely an area that needs some tending to. Do you have any other tips or ideas before we talk about what we can do in the workplace?
I'd like to make a vote for the superpowers of perimenopause. We've talked a lot about the difficulties and what we can do, but there's, for example, in relationships, we in this perimenopause time, we develop, as estrogen disappears, we develop discernment. We can absolutely see what is working and what is not working in our life. And we also are standing in our power to communicate that. And obviously, if you're hungry, it tends to go a bit wonky. But, if we have been sitting on these feelings all through our midlife, and we will have been, because if you have a family, if you've had children, you cannot, you put these small people first. If you're working hard in a career to achieve things in the world, or doing both, as most of us are, there's not much space to express feelings. So when they all come up, like the chicken incident, you've got a bit of a backlog going on there. So there's something about acknowledging the truth and the validity of these feelings, like not dismissing them as crazy, but finding safe and nourishing ways to express them. And that might be through dancing, drawing with your therapist, chatting with your friends, stomping up hills, kickboxing, or doing yoga or whatever, but finding, really validating those feelings, because that comes from a place of discernment, of seeing, this is not working for me, I need to choose another way.
Oh, that's lovely. I think you're right. Our brain changes because as estrogen goes down, and then we have this superpower of discernment. So thank you for sharing that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the survey, Claire. So you did a survey with Bank of America on menopause in the workplace. Tell us a little bit about what you found.
Yeah, well, you've probably seen it's going to become really a very important topic when we have been talking about menopause in the United States. And so really happy to partner with Bank of America on this, which was a groundbreaking study to look at what do human resource managers and in companies, and what do women think about menopause in the workplace. And as we said, this frightening statistics are like up to 30% of women leave the workforce during this stage of life because of some of the symptoms that we're having, or the not knowing that some of the things happening to us are related to the menopausal change. And so I've heard from many women who say, oh God, I thought I couldn't keep up anymore. I wasn't keeping up with what was happening, and some of that, or I couldn't remember the things I used to be able to remember. And that's, as we know now, is all brain fog. It's really another symptom that we deal with at menopause. So we wanted to address, what can companies do to keep women who are going through the menopausal transition in the workforce and productive? Because we bring so much to that workforce. We've had all of these years of experience and wisdom and practice, and we've been applying them to the businesses that we work in and whatever that industry is. And then to lose women at that stage of their career is a real detriment to our economy, and certainly to the businesses that we're working in. And that can be, same thing, no matter what industry women are working in. So anyway, we were looking at this from an office setting perspective. And what we found was the biggest disconnect were HR managers thinking that they do have good policies in place and that menopause is covered under their benefits, and then women thinking that that was not the case, and so it's not surprising that there would be that disconnect, honestly, when you think about it, because so many things that we think about in today's workforce aren't spelled out specifically for menopause, or aren't part of a menopause policy, but they could be and should be. So if we think about a little, even in our not quite post-COVID, but our whatever level of COVID we're in now, where people have been working from home a little bit more, and so there's been flexibility in some of that scheduling, again, for those who are in an office setting where that's allowable. Those are some of the benefits that women who are going through the menopausal transition are hoping for. I don't function well in the morning anymore. I'd love to start a little bit later, or it'd be great to not have to go to the office when I'm having, major hot flashes throughout the day. So some of those accommodations, like we said, are here. But what we learned was that 50% of women who responded to the survey said that they did find that menopausal symptoms disrupt their life. And 42% of them felt that it was disrupting their work life. So that's a lot of the workforce when you think about how many women in our society today are working through this stage of life. And so we really need to just destigmatize this stage of life and talk about the fact that it's a normal stage of life, and that there are things that can be done that will help women and all of our colleagues, as we're performing our professional duties, will help us all kind of be better at supporting women during this transitional stage. 58% of peri and postmenopausal women say they did not feel comfortable talking about their menopause symptoms in the workplace. And again, when we talk about the connection between menopause and aging, and how women were traditionally been viewed as we age, men get more distinguished, right? That is not what they say about women in our society. And so we really do need to think about, how do we change that dynamic and make it something that women are more comfortable talking about in the workplace. It's a very personal thing. It's, we talk about it like all stages of women's lives, but certainly when you're going through this and the things that are happening to you are biological and psychological, sometimes people think it's too personal. And so, and then the other worry is that women said that they would think that they would be perceived as being old. And again, we do not have a good relationship with aging in our society. So we have some conversation changes that need to happen to bring about true positive developments for women in the workplace when it comes to being at the peak of their careers and also going through the menopausal transition.
Yeah, that's really disturbing, that on so many levels, that there's that disconnect, and that so many women, almost 2/3 don't want to talk about what they're actually going through. I mean, I think about something like pregnancy, like going to work versus, obviously it's people can see it, but if someone's having a bad day when they're pregnant, like, I'm having a bad day, I'm staying home today, or I need to have compensation. So I guess for the final question, both of you, so what do we need to do going forward, both individually and collectively, so that going through the menopausal transition is, something that is is accepted, is talked about the way we talk about adolescence, the way we talk about, pregnancy, so many other things. Any thoughts about what we can do individually and collectively to create a smoother road going forward, so that in 10 years, when it's World Menopause Day in 2034, we're like, wow, it's really celebrated and looked at differently. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think within companies, we're looking at a culture change, really. If I can't remember what the percentage was that felt it was too personal to talk about, that's because of the culture. That's because of the culture of shame. So the education has to happen right across the board, because perimenopause touches everyone. Everyone has a line manager or a boss or somebody in their team or a sister or a mother or a girlfriend or a friend who will be in perimenopause. It's going to touch everybody. So understanding, I mean, I think the most crucial thing is the age. If once you understand that changes can be seen and felt in the mid-30s, and also the variations according to ethnicity. So for people of African heritage, that might be earlier. People of Asian heritage, that can be different as well, to Caucasian ages of menopause. So that could be happening at a very different time. And once this is understood, then, and as well as all the physiological stuff and the symptoms and all this kind of thing, by everybody, then the culture can start to change. And the culture can start to change about, I mean, I often feel that if we allowed more vulnerability in the workplace, across the board, across menstrual health, across mental health, across all kinds, because we all feel vulnerable and yet it's not talked about, then that would cause that by itself would have a massive shift around perimenopause, just allowing more vulnerability. And of course, once you start talking about perimenopause, there's a natural knock-on benefit for menstrual education. Right. And all the people suffering with endo and PCOS and all these other menstrual and PMDD and other issues that are touching people who menstruate. So it's a whole culture shift and education right across the board that needs to happen.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It just brings up Brene Brown and talking about vulnerability as a strength. If we could all see that we all are all imperfect beings and get away from this energy of shame, which is I'm bad, and just say, yeah, I'm a little vulnerable today. I'm having a bad day. I didn't sleep well last night. Or, I love that you brought in, all of this, for our periods in general, that women are going through all kinds of things. So thank you for sharing that. How about you, Claire? What can we do? What needs to happen, particularly, personally and collectively?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think the women tend to be the ones who show that vulnerability and then pay the price for it in many instances, right? And it's the acceptance of the vulnerability has to be across all, genders as well. So we have to do that. But I think, exactly as you said, Kate, education is really big. 64% of women in our survey said that they wanted actual workplace policies around menopause. So even if it's not creating anything new, like as I said, you might be just being able to have flex time or being able to change the days that you work or work from home or, all of those kinds of things, and educational programs, actually having a stated policy so that women do feel like they can talk about it or take advantage of it for those reasons was one of the major things that people ask for. That's an easy thing for companies to do. It's just, again, say the word, put menopause in your policies, just like you have parenting policies or pregnancy policies or any of those things, mental health days, whatever it is. So I think that's something that we can do collectively to make a difference. And then I think another big thing that we need to do, and then the education, again, workplaces are a great place for this education to happen because it is not happening elsewhere. We do not yet have it in the schools like we do for talking about adolescence and puberty. We don't have it anywhere else. So having those conversations and just making that information accessible to women in the workplace would be hugely, and men, so they understand what their colleagues and spouses and family members are going through, and then being able to act on that and being able to use those that information to just bring about a better culture for women, where they don't have to feel so embarrassed by the fact that they have to explain themselves or hide as they're going through that stage of life. And then individually, I think we need to, as we stand in our power, as you said, Kate, that really this is a time for us to use all of those skills that we've built throughout our lives to really advocate for ourselves and our sisters. And one of the ways that we can do that, at least here in the United States, is by saying that we want more attention to things about midlife women's health. And so under the National Menopause Foundation, we will be launching the Midlife Women's Health Policy Institute. And the purpose of that is to bring together all stakeholders who deal with women's health at midlife and help set an agenda that we can work on together to activate and change some of the policies that are not currently addressing women's health at midlife, women's health in general, but we're going to start with women's health at midlife. And so there'll be more information about that on our website. And in the more immediate activities, with the Let's Talk Menopause organization in New York that I referenced, that we're working with on a lot of different things, we are working on the Menopause and Equity Research Act of 2023 that will be hopefully introduced in Congress this year, which calls for more research dollars provided to the National Institute of Health to study menopause and women's health. And you can go to letstalkmenopause.org, and you'll see on their homepage a way that individual women can sign up to get more information about that and to help us advocate with your members of Congress to say, we want more attention paid to research in women's health at midlife.
Very cool. And so I'm here also to put out that we need a midlife perimenopause documentary.
They're in the works. I've heard about several, actually.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm not sure when they're due to come out, but those have been worked on,
good.
As far as I know. And so, yeah, I look forward to seeing those come to fruition. And certainly when they are released, I'm sure all of us will be promoting them very widely.
Yes,
you need a celebrity,
yeah.
Sad in this day and age, but it works.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore, she'd work, but there's a lot of celebrity here in the States that are talking about it. So thank you both for talking about it. My goodness, you have provided so many amazing ideas and ways that each and every single one of us can do things. And I think as we advocate for ourselves, we are changing the collective. We are literally, as we are putting ourselves out there, talking to our doctors, talking to people at work, talking to our family members, we are changing the milieu of what is happening with perimenopause. And I love, Kate, that you're talking about the empowerment that it provides, the new way of thinking. I know that a lot of people are talking more about that. So it is a great time of life to really transform yourself, look at your body. So thank you both for being here. Thank you all for listening. Just want to let people know where to find you. I know, Claire, you are at letstalkmenopause.org, and the National Menopause Foundation is nationalmenopausefoundation.org. And Kate's book is fabulous. It's Second Spring, the self-care guide to menopause. And Kate, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? You do like Instagram? I know your Instagram's always fantastic. Where should people reach out to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I have a huge and free resource library of meditations, of free workshops that will empower you to advocate for your own kind of care with your health providers. And you can find that at katecodrington.co.uk. But I also want to shout out to the BSI, that's the British Standards Institute, and they have created this fantastic document. It's called Menstruation and Menopause Health in the Workplace, and it covers everything from education, how to educate within the workplace, and all the way to how to have a conversation about perimenopause written for line managers. And there's also a second document for small to medium-sized enterprises as well, who maybe don't have the budget of big corporates.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for being here. Thank you all for listening. If you want to reach out to me, just go to themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. I would love to know what you think about the show. And if you need some personalized, individualized coaching, if you're going through perimenopause or anything else that you need during your midlife, please reach out. Thanks again. Midlife can be challenging. You may be sandwiched between growing kids and aging parents, dealing with menopause or a health issue, and trying to find work-life balance. Or maybe your life looks good on the outside, but inside you're feeling stuck and wondering how to get your confidence, energy, and joy back. Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer, and I hear you and I've got you. Think of me as the one-stop shop for all your midlife needs. I'm a psychologist, registered dietitian, nutritionist, board-certified health and wellness coach, and mindful self-compassion teacher. I'm also an author and podcast host with over 30 years of experience empowering midlife women. I provide inspiration and wisdom to help you transform your health, your mindset, your relationships, and your life so you can rock midlife.